Welcome to this episode of the Garret and Eric podcast, where Garrett is in a new location for the foreseeable future.
Oh, yeah.
Eric's AC is out, so he's not wearing a shirt. So, just you don't have to watch this one; just listen with your ear holes, because I know that it can be a bit uncomfortable. Eric, we're gonna get demonetized. Not that we're even monetized in the first place.
Exactly.
We don't make any money.
Safe. We can do whatever we want. Freedom of expression.
Freedom of expression, exactly.
First Amendment. What's up?
Yeah.
Hashtag free the nipple. Anyway.
I don't think that's what that campaign is about, Eric. I think everyone would appreciate it. I think it's more for women's nipples.
Well, here we are. All right. So, discussion. So, yeah, in recent news, last time we talked was quite a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I went to Texas, and then I went to Ohio, and I came back. Saw some family, did a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But that's more like stuff I'll talk to you about later on,
Yeah.
One-on-one homie stuff. But what I'm really hyped about is I got a sous vide machine.
A what machine?
A sous vide machine. Exactly. I got you, bro. Oh, can you enable screen sharing real quick?
Oh, yeah, I got you. Let's see. I'll just make you the host because I don't know how to do that.
Oh, look at me. I'm powerful now.
Yeah. All the power just got transferred to you.
All right, so you see it?
Oh, I have one of those.
Really?
Yeah.
You guys use it?
No.
Huh. Dang. That's wild. That's really cool that you guys have one. But yeah, I got one because I've been wanting to, I like to cook and stuff. And when I cook, I like for it to be good.
Yeah.
And I hate for my thing is, I want to eat healthy and all that stuff because I like to work out and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get back into that. But eating healthy really sucks when the food doesn't taste good. And in my experience, I don't really like the way chicken breast is I feel like the easiest protein to eat, But it's also one of the more difficult ones to make. I feel make it well, to where it tastes good and isn't dry and stuff.
Yeah.
So then I was just sous vide, Plus I watched a lot of cooking videos and I've just been I was constantly I should probably get one. And recently, because I'm moving to Japan soon, all that junk.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get things that I'm interested in doing and start doing them. That's maybe I don't want us to stop doing the podcast because even though it doesn't really have a linear progression and stuff, I still like doing it.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel I feel it's something good just to have as friends that we can do and just put out there just because why not,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, I got the sous vide, hyped to start cooking with it. And then yeah.
So
that's that.
That's awesome.
But and then I bought that tripod because I really I still know I want to do YouTube videos, my own channel, and make my own videos. But I just don't know what to pick, what topic to pick,
Yeah, I got you.
I've thought about doing entertainment, primarily talking about comics and cartoons.
Yeah. Because
I've read a lot of comics and I've watched a good bit of cartoons, and I feel I'm kind of knowledgeable on those things. I could speak on them, But then I'm just where to even start? Because I thought about doing a tier list maybe, or a best comics to read, stuff like that.
Yeah. Dude, the best place to start right now, if you want to get a video out quick, is DC Fandom that just happened.
Oh.
They released a Batman trailer for Matt Reeves' Batman. They released behind the scenes for the Suicide Squad movie with James Gunn directing. They released the trailer for Gotham Knights, for Suicide Squad the game, Kill the Justice League. They all look fantastic.
Oh, dang. True. I didn't even think about that. I see the DC Fandom commercials too, and I was yo. HBO Max?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. And I didn't, but I saw that they had I mean, the primary reason was for Game of Thrones. Like, I want to watch Game of Thrones because I want to be part of like the cult of most people who've seen the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, who doesn't want to watch Game of Thrones?
Me.
And why? Like,
I don't know. It just seems like, I mean, it just seems like Skyrim the show, and I'm just like, I don't really like Skyrim.
Yeah,
like,
I mean that in and of itself is like very sacrilegious statement, but we just don't have the time to like properly address that. Like, how does one not like Skyrim? But my thing is, I really want what do you call it? Well, I think the idea of like, I like Lord of the Rings and something. I like fantasy worlds.
Yeah.
And it's like that's like by far the most like mainstream like socially understood and accepted fantasy world that people like follow and know the backstory of. And it's like, and it's supposed to be well executed. So it's like that fact makes me want to get into it because for years and years it was considered like one of the best shows on network television to get into and to binge and like all that stuff.
Until the end.
Until the end, yeah. And my thing is, I was like, I love reading the books, and if I get invested in the characters, I'll have no problem switching to the books, which people say are much better at handling the ending or like continuing. So I was like, I just read the books from that point.
Yeah, the show goes on to continue beyond the books, though, I thought.
Well, that it does, but I think like retroactively, he's still writing the books. But they did like some anime do where the show gets ahead of the books and ends up screwing it up.
Yeah.
But then the author's like, well, I'm still writing the books. And everyone's like, please release it. We need it.
Yeah, I feel like he's been saying that for a while and he just hasn't released anything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I'm not even knowledgeable on it.
I've just seen a lot of memes about it. Or like they parody it a lot in shows where they're just like, he's the J.J. Abrams of, or not J.J. Abrams. Who's the guy? James Cameron. He's like the James Cameron with Avatar. He's doing that with like his books. It's like, I'll release it. I'll release it eventually. All right. 2024, I swear. Avatar 2 is coming out. And the next in the Game of Thrones series, it's gonna be great. Everyone's gonna love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely I think that would be cool when he eventually releases it.
If he does, yeah.
But yeah, so there's that. And now another thing I thought about talking about was in recent news. So like, yesterday my mom and I were talking.
Yeah.
That's what like ended up making it to where we didn't record last night. And the thing is, we've been talking about. I was like talking about my frustration of like feeling like the media is always like looking for like a black person being shot by police.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like it happens commonly enough. But sometimes I wonder like how truly newsworthy it is, or like I feel like there's more context that isn't being given. And in particular, like I think it was yesterday, I read about this guy in Wisconsin who the headline read, "Black man shot 7 times in the back walking to his car." I click on it like, well, what's the story behind it? And it's like this guy was apparently there was a domestic violence call, like a domestic dispute, and the police showed up, and he wasn't actually involved, but he was trying to break them up.
Yeah,
is what people are saying, and the police, I guess, tried to apprehend him or tried to like arrest him, and he just started walking away, like walking to his car. So they're like following him with their guns, and they're like pointing at him, and they're like yelling at him to like get down or like whatever. But he just keeps walking to his car, and he like leans into his car like he's gonna get in, and then that's when the cop shoots him 7 times in the back.
Dang.
Yeah. Now my thing is, I was like, this to me it was kind of iffy because I was like, I understand that. Of course, the first thing that through my head was, well, I think it was like, why does the cop have his gun out?
Yeah.
That's what I don't understand. From my perspective, it's like, do you not have a taser? Like,
exactly.
I'm pretty sure. Like, I just don't understand why these police like will go to the gun as their first tool. It's like you're supposed to have training one, how to like physically subdue someone. You have a taser. You should be capable. If this guy's not complying with your order to stop, why is it that you're using your lethal method, your potentially lethal method, to subdue this guy when you have a bunch of non-lethal methods that you could use that are just as effective? That's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
And the whole thing was in the video, it's like, but on the other side of it, as far as like the kind of rationale of the cop side, it's like the dude's not complying, you know?
Yeah.
And he's walking to his car, and I understand how theoretically this dude could have a gun in his car, you know? He could have like, they don't know what he has in his car. They don't know why he's going to his car. They're not saying like, hey, like, you know, it's a tense situation. They're pulling up to settle a domestic dispute call. And because the police show up, they're in like a neighborhood. And in the video, you can hear in the background people like yelling, like, you know, hey, like, you know, stop, like all that stuff. And look, I'll do you want to just see the video so you can understand what you want to do?
No, I hate
okay, yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't usually watch videos like that either, but it was from kind of far away. So I was like, plus I was just curious. I was like, I want to understand. Yeah. So the whole thing is, I keep going. Sorry. Oh, excuse me.
That's all right.
But yeah, so the whole thing is, I'm like, it's clearly a tense situation for the police, right? They show up, everyone's like yelling and stuff like that at them. You know, people in the house probably, you know, it's a domestic dispute call, so they're in an argument, so they're probably not like listening to the cops, everything they're saying. And then you've got this guy who the cops are like, hey, stop, or whatever they said, and he's just like walking to his, like he's walking away, like not listening. So it's like, should the cop have shot him? Like, of course not. But it's like at the same time, from my perspective, because I look at it, when I look at those situations, I put myself in his shoes. I could be him, you know. But the difference is, I'm like I wouldn't be walking away. Like if the cops tell me to stop, it's like just the fact that they have a gun is a really, really good like incentive to make me stop, even if it's not pointed at me. In this guy's case, it was pointed at him, and it's like, bro, like what, stop, like halt, please, like halt, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, I just don't like it, and I feel like in my mind, I'm like, is it newsworthy? Is it like protest worthy? Is it riot worthy? I don't know. Like, I'm not from that city, because that's the city where everyone's protesting, because that's what happened, you know? And I'm like, I think it could be in the way of like police reform and stuff like that. But at the same time, I feel like people should really like take a second and evaluate how they're interacting with the police, and kind of consider the fact that police also, like, they're also in a tense situation, you know?
But I think
it's like, you don't want to, like, I know it's, people will say, well, oh, it's not the cop's responsibility to like, it's not the person's responsibility to be the mature one and be the person who's thinking rationally. But it's like, yes, it is. Like, it's your responsibility to look out for your own safety. The cop's job at the end of the day is not like, I want to preserve this guy's life. He doesn't even know you. He knows that he got called for a domestic dispute call, and you were just there in the midst of it. For all he knows, you could be the guy who was instigating the issue. You could be the guy who was just yelling or hitting people or whatever the problem is.
Yeah.
And now you're just walking away and you're refusing to comply with his orders. So once again, I don't think he should have shot him, but it's like, you're not, the fact that he has his gun pointed at you means it's at that point a lot easier for him to pull the trigger. That it's not like he's going to be like, oh, let me holster this real quick, you know, grab a less dangerous way of subduing this person, you know?
Yeah, but like you said, I mean, he shouldn't have even had it drawn, you know?
Yeah.
Because it would be great if everyone, oh, you walked away.
Oops. I'm still there.
Right.
I just had to slide over and grab something.
I gotcha. It'd be great if everyone knew the perfect way to interact with police officers. But it's like impossible to train an entire, you know, society of people, or an entire community of people to do that. Whereas with the police, you know, you could You could easily train a police force better to use less deadly force right out the gate, you know? They don't need to be, you know, the the bulls that they release out of the, rodeo place, ready to go and pounce and shove their horns into your chest, They need
Yeah.
to be, like, trained and, like, a bit more, I don't know. I don't know what the word is, but a bit more aware
Mm.
about their use of deadly force and how it could obviously kill someone. It's called deadly force, when to
Yeah.
use deadly force and when not to use deadly force. I mean, they're two completely different situations.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is the dude's still alive.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, that's the crazy thing.
You
Like,
get shot 7 times in the back and you're still alive?
yeah, that's what
That's
I
some
think is
freaking
crazy.
bullshit.
And it just shows how, excuse me, the body is a crazy thing,
Yeah,
And there are plenty of times where someone gets shot one time or caught by a stray bullet and they die because they just got hit in an unlucky place.
yeah.
Versus this guy who took 7 shots, and the cop was like 3 feet behind him
Mhm.
when he shot him, and it's just like 7 shots straight up.
Yeah,
And it's just like, like, that's once again why the gun is not even in a fit. Like, why are you shooting this guy? Like, with a gun, a pistol of that caliber, it doesn't have that stopping power. It's not gonna like if he's worrying the guy's gonna reach into his car and grab a gun, the guy reaches into his car or leans into his car, whatever it is. If you just tased him, he would fall. He would like immediately be like subdued or stunned. That's
yeah,
the point of a taser. That's why they give it to the police in the first place. The pistol, that's like a longer range, more lethal option. And that's what I found so frustrating is like in the video, like he's like 2 or 3 feet from the guy, like with his gun, like behind the dude. He's like, stop, like pointing it at the guy, and the guy's just walking away. And
yeah,
I'm like, just tase it. Like, isn't that what you're taught to do? Like, why are you just holding your gun right now? Like, you have other options, or just tackle the dude. Like, what the heck? Like, you're once again like that. You're totally within your rights as a policeman to subdue this guy because he's resisting arrest or whatever. But it's
yeah.
like, why do you ever gun it? Like, what the freak?
I don't know. I think there's a lot of different perspectives to consider, I guess, but at the end of the day, I disagree with you. I think it is the cop's responsibility to.
I never said it wasn't. I just said
Yeah.
we can't put all of the accountability on the police because at the end of the day, it's two people in the situation.
Yeah, but the police is supposed to be the one that's trained. A civilian's not supposed to know, that this guy, first of all, he had his back turned to him, so I don't even know if he knew that he was talking to him or knew that he had a gun pointed at him, you know, because he didn't think that, well, he didn't do anything wrong, so why would they be pointing a gun at him, you know?
Yeah,
Maybe he was just thinking along those lines. I don't really know, but
yeah,
I think that the cop definitely, like you said, shouldn't have had his gun drawn in the first place. But
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know. I think police reform is definitely something that needs to be brought to the public,
yeah,
conversation in general. And I think the media does have a bad way of doing things, as they always do.
yeah,
But they're half-assed reporting and leaning biases in whichever direction.
yeah,
Usually, if a person can collect all of that and kind of look at it objectively, they can usually. You have to trust the people to do that.
yeah. I think that's the problem is that people don't. Like I feel like my
Yeah.
problem is I see an article and I'm able to read an article and understand that it's not 100% like just the truth, just the facts. That's not what
Yeah.
journalism is. That's not what journalism has been for a long time. I
Yeah.
think the problem is all
Yeah.
the people on the fringes who aren't like the majority of people just don't read that much into it. I think it's the
Mhm.
same thing as like the reason that email scams are still a thing,
Yeah.
and the reason that people still get ripped off all the time because a lot of people just don't read into whatever it is they're doing enough. They don't research it. They don't check it because at the end of the day, you see a headline, you're going to talk about the headline. Most people don't even read the article. They'll say, you know what I read on Facebook? You know what I saw on Facebook?
Yeah.
And they'll tell you the article. And then you'll say, well, if you're someone like me, you'll say, well, what else did it say? And they're like, oh, well, I didn't read the article. I just read the headline.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, as when I was running Facebook ads and stuff, your post or whatever it is will always get way more impressions than it will views.
Mm.
And an impression is just where it's on someone's page and they scroll past it.
Yeah.
That's an impression. So, your post might get 10,000 views, but like 50,000 impressions.
Yeah.
So that means 50,000 people still read your headline, but only 10,000 clicked on the article.
Mm.
So when you think about it, at the end of the day, a majority of the people didn't read the article. A majority of people don't actually know what happened. They're only operating based on the headline. So a majority of people think all they read was black man shot in the back 7 times as he went to the car. And they're going to take that. I think it's very easy for people to become radicalized off of these sensationalist headlines that are really just baiting people.
I think you're extrapolating a bit based off of your information because, I mean, you ran an advertisement for a sweatshirt. I mean, that's a far cry from a news story about someone getting shot and killed, I think. Or, well, not killed in this case, but you know what I mean.
But what I'm saying is it's about the algorithm. Like the algorithm, every algorithm is like that. It's like on TikTok where you see a video with 2 million views and 50,000 likes.
Yeah.
Like each social media algorithm is designed to get interactions with the post. Facebook's algorithm is designed to get your post the most comments, likes, shares, and views. Well, depending on what you optimize for. But the thing is, no matter what you optimize it for, it's going to put it in front of way more people that are actually going to do what you want. That's why you're paying them.
Yeah.
The average ad click-through rate of like a successful company is like, I think they said it's like, I know it's under 10%, I think, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The point is it's low. So at the end of the day, it's not just about, I'm not speaking from my particular experience of something where I literally saw my own data.
Yeah.
But if you go into something like Social Blade, something like that, and you look at anything's posting, like what someone puts out, whether it be a person or a media outlet, and how many people actually consume all the information.
Yeah.
A majority of people don't consume all the information. That's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, I think that the people who don't consume all the information always have radical views and always are like the outspoken ones.
Yeah.
But
that's my thing is a majority of people are those people.
Yeah. And it's hard to get, a fair view because the people who do read all the articles are just like, they're mostly silent,
Yeah.
They know all the information, they know all the perspectives, or at least in their eyes they do. And they're just like, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, so I'm just going to let this one pass and be like, post a black square on Instagram and then I'll be good.
Yeah. I think another thing is people who tend to really get into actually understanding the information are less likely to be radicalized to the point of feeling like they need to say something.
Yeah.
Because you can make it make sense. Someone who just reads the headline, they're like, another black man shot by police, look at this. And then they'll go to Twitter and start immediately talking about it and, retweeting the article. Or someone like myself reads the article in full, then looks it up and reads 3 other articles because I always read vertically, where I find different articles from different sources to kind of get an idea of how legit what I'm reading is.
Yeah.
And only after that do I have my own opinion.
But then you're becoming the very thing that you're upset about is that people are yelling and screaming, but they don't have all the information. You have all the information. Why aren't you being the voice that you want to hear out there?
Well, that's the problem. Like, my thing is, to me, it's like I'm talking about it in this forum with you, and I talked about it with my mom. But like to me, well, first of all, I don't have like a large Twitter. I don't have like any social media following. So to me, I don't really like when people when random people just post their political opinions on social media. Like I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And my whole thing is, it's like, you're right. Like, honestly, like I kind of have to like put responsibility on myself for that. It's like, as someone to kind of be a voice for, I guess, the middle ground, because I feel like the problem is like the most outspoken people are always the people on the fringes. Because people in the middle can't be bothered. We're too busy focusing on school or work or whatever else. We don't have time to get obsessed with like every headline and all the injustices and all the issues. that may not even be directly impacting us. Because there are a lot of people, like the people who are at ground zero who are actually being affected by the issues, that's a different story altogether.
Yeah.
Like they're speaking out against it because they're actively being oppressed by whatever that system is or that problem is. Or for someone like me, I don't feel like I'm actively oppressed or in danger.
Yeah.
Because I look at what I can do about it. I think that's what people should do. Not because I think people, some people are scared and they're like, well, I'm a black man and I don't know what to do when I see the cops pulling me over. I get scared.
Yeah.
Or I get worried. But it's like, really, you shouldn't be, because statistically, like, you're fine. Like, if you look at the amount of, any ethnicity of individuals who get pulled over every day in routine traffic stops, and the amount of people where it results in any violence or any altercation, it's a really small percentage, It's like that's very much something that has to happen. Like the police have a job to do and they do it generally well. It's a vast minority where something extreme happens. The problem is that's all the media. Like the media is not like, 5,000 routine traffic stops today, no incident. Like they don't talk about that. It's the first time something happens, they're like, this man was shot. He had a family. He had children. He was and not to say any of that's not true. But the problem is a lot of people, that's all they see. And so they get this fear ingrained in their mind. And then when the police interact with them, they are scared. And now instead of reacting rationally and calmly, they're walking away to their car and not listening to the police who's telling them orders. And it's like you're endangering yourself in that way.
I think we should rewind a bit. I think you're being a bit too individualistic when you say that you think, what can I do? Like as a person. One person can't do all that much. I'll admit that. Like
what I mean is, real quick, just for clarification, I don't mean like on a grand scale. I mean in your own situation. Like I think, what can I do when I get pulled over? That's what I think people should think about more, not like their impact.
Yeah. But even that, I mean, like someone has to tell them. Like it's obviously, like, I guess I misunderstood, but like, what can you do as a single person? Not much.
Yeah.
Like, except for save yourself.
Well, on the large scale, yeah. I mean, it's hard to have that impact.
You have to have a lot of people behind you.
Yeah.
But you're not going to get a lot of people behind you by just being silent,
Yeah.
You have to, like, the people who are directly affected by police brutality and need the police reform the most, they have a very small voice right now. But I think the people who aren't affected by it also need to be speaking up and also need to be, at the forefront of it, because without us, I'm not particularly affected by police brutality. I live in a nice area. I'm not, affected by it nearly as much as someone who might live somewhere else who's living a completely different story, I need to band together with those people to say, hey, this isn't fair. These people's lives are just as valuable as mine, and we should cherish them. And just like anyone else, they could do something great. Even if you want to be completely selfish, it makes sense to help these people, because you're getting more people that could eventually help you out in the long run. Because that's why it makes sense for people to get more educated. Makes sense to help the unemployment rate, because as more people are getting employed, the economy gets helped, and then boom, your selfish self that is just thinking about yourself, just help these people for your own benefit, and those people got helped either way. That's how I view it, at least. It's like those people are getting helped no matter if you're acting out of pure selflessness or pure selfishness. These people need help, and either way, it's a win-win.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, all that really matters is that outcome.
Yeah,
that's what I always talk about. Like I with my mom, because she's one of those people who's like, she's like, if it's not done in a moral way, then it's wrong. And my whole thing is, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, the world isn't that simple to where every good thing that ever happened can come from, like, look at America, like our country. Our country would not have been as wealthy and powerful. They would not have been, one of the wealthiest countries in the world and one of the power hubs of the world without slavery, because they wouldn't have they needed a cheap labor force to allow for the country to industrialize and to have this, surge of growth. Because at the end of the day, obviously it's a terrible thing that happened. But
Yeah.
when you have millions of workers that you don't have to pay and you don't treat fairly, you're able to produce a lot of crops compared to if you're paying a bunch of people and all that stuff. At that time, it wasn't, systemized and optimized to be something where they could do it without having slaves. Nowadays, there's machines and stuff like that that make up for it. But back then, you needed, 1,000 people to pick your cotton, and slaves were the 1,000 people to pick that cotton. And had they all been being paid, then there wouldn't have been as much money generated, and it wouldn't have been as good for the country overall.
I think a better analogy and a less controversial analogy, because that one seems a little bit on the fringes, in my opinion. I think a better one would be, people want to take down the statue of Abraham Lincoln because he didn't free the slaves for the right reason. He, in an address, he said, for the strength of the Union, for our people, we need to free these slaves. He wasn't thinking about, all people are equal, all people, he wasn't thinking about that. Not even in the slightest. That's not what people thought back then.
Yeah.
He was thinking, he was the most liberal person, probably the most liberal president, probably, for that time.
Of his time, yeah.
He was just thinking, what can I do to strengthen the Union?
Yeah.
And he thought, freeing the slaves. And people want to take down the statue because he didn't do it for the right reasons. No one was going to do it for the right reasons. No one was thinking all were equal at that time.
Plus, at the end of the day, it's about someone who has the platform. Because there were probably plenty of abolitionists who were passionate about it, but they were too extreme. They were never going to be accepted by, the mass population of the Union. Because at the end of the day, at that time, the Union was still quite conservative. The whole country was, the world was. Yeah. So I think it's super dumb. People love to look at they look at people from historical context through a modern lens, which makes no sense. We don't look at a doctor from the 1800s and say, look at his techniques. Yeah. This doesn't make any sense. They didn't even know what germs were then. They literally didn't understand how pathogens spread. They did their best with what they were given, and we allow them to we're not saying take that doctor's name off the monument because he didn't disinfect his hands. He didn't know what a germ was. And I feel in the same way, Abraham Lincoln, he wasn't raised in an equal world. He was not taught that. And for his time, he still did because what matters is the outcome. Once again, he freed the slaves. He got the 13th Amendment passed in the Union. And that's what matters. That's why the statue's there. The statue's not there because it doesn't say on the bottom, he's a saint who believed in, freaking rainbows and sunshine. He got something done. He got an important result for progress done in his time. Yeah. And I feel that in of itself is reason enough to leave the statue alone.
Yeah. Without people doing their best with what they know, progress just doesn't happen. Those doctors that didn't know what germs were, we would have never found out what germs were if those doctors didn't exist. They were cutting open heads, doing lobotomies, literally stabbing your brain with a stick up your nose.
Yeah.
Without them, we wouldn't know anything.
Exactly.
We know today. We would still be shoving sticks up our nose. We would just be, a bit smarter not to poke certain parts, I guess. But it's just I don't know, people, to look at history in a modern lens is really, really just stupid. It's stupid,
it doesn't make sense. You can't retroact. One of the most common sayings you'll ever hear, hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
Anyone who's lived any years of their life can think of probably at least 50 things where they wish they could go back in time and change it. From the smallest things, when you forgot your keys and you're that slowed me down, to the larger things, a lie you told, or, a friend you lost, or a relationship you ruined. It's everyone has so many faults.
Yeah.
And yet people look back on these historical figures and they're he wasn't even an angel. He wasn't even perfect. I cannot believe, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's dude, you've got to really understand the times.
Yeah.
And respect that.
But before we go on with this conversation, I think I need to clarify for myself. I do not support like Confederate leaders, statues of Confederate leaders. I don't support that. While I do think, it is history, I'm not going to say it's not history. History belongs like in the museums, not on our state house grounds or anything like that. Like, plus they were put up not even during the time where they would have been worshipped. They were put up in like the 60s,
Yeah.
So I think I need to clarify for myself. I don't support those statues because they were fighting for something evil. Like, we don't have slavery anymore, and they were fighting for slavery. Abraham Lincoln, on the other hand, did actually free the slaves. He was on the other end of that. I think for myself, I need to clarify. Down with those statues, but like up with the statue of Abraham Lincoln, who was on the other side of that. If we're going to celebrate one side or the other, let's celebrate, Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. And my thing is, I honestly don't know. Like, my personal stance on taking out statues is like, I don't really have one because I feel like it's never impacted me, right? Like, I've never felt the impact of it implicitly. So I can't really, I feel like personally, I don't want to speak on it because like when I went to the State House for like the 6th grade field trip, was it? Or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6th grade field trip. I went to the State House. There was some Confederate dude there. But
we had the Confederate flag
I was still very black and totally unharmed, like when I left. And I didn't feel any less than because it was there. And I'm like, I feel like personally, it's like symbolic, I guess people say. But I'm like, what real impact does it have? What real change comes from tearing down the statue? It takes a lot of work to tear it down, as in a lot of media, a lot of, there's a lot of arguing, debating going on. And it's, in my thing is, it sows more seeds of distrust and distension. Because then people get into this right left thing and this conservative liberal thing. So you've got a bunch of people saying, well, we shouldn't tear it down because XYZ, regardless of the fact that they have no stake in it. It's like, if you really get down to the core element of why someone doesn't want it torn down, they're going to say, well, I'm a conservative and other conservatives don't want it torn down. And if you get really into the nitty gritty of why someone might want it torn down, they're going to say, well, that guy represented like bad things, or whatever, which like is a fair point. Like, if someone like committed like war crimes or atrocities, like tear it down, I guess. But my thing is, people are entitled to their opinion, and like, these were at the end of the day significant people in state history. So it's like, just they had bad opinions, but it's like, I don't know. For me, it's really iffy, right?
I mean, they fought against America to be a completely different nation. I think.
Yeah, but our country doesn't. I feel like the country clearly doesn't truly care about that because there are still rebel pride shirts and all that stuff. So it's not like really it matters. Like, it represents something else now, in my opinion. I feel like it's the same thing as the N-word. Like, what do people say? We rebranded it. We took it back. We changed the meaning. And now you can't listen to a rap song that doesn't have it in it. And it's a word that literally was used to dehumanize a race of people. That way you didn't have to use any kind of like name or human association. You could literally just refer to them as something less than dirt. That's the word. Like, that's the term that is now used, like, to refer to your friends, your girls, your people, like anything. And that's okay. That's a super hateful term with a super bad history, and they changed the meaning for the better, and now people can use it. So my thing is, if we can do that as Black people, I feel like people who want to wear the Confederate flag, like, have at it. Like, it used to represent hate. It used to represent all these bad things. You say it doesn't anymore. You say you're not a racist. Fair enough. Like, keep your flag. Like, that's cool to me.
I'll bite. I'll give you this. I'll take you on that. So let's go on a bit of a journey. The Germans, right?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to fly the Nazi flag in Germany for obvious reasons. That's a harsh part of their history that they don't really want to celebrate.
Yeah.
There are still neo-Nazis in Germany. There will probably always be neo-Nazis in Germany and America and a lot of different places. There are neo-Nazis here. But the neo-Nazis can't fly the Nazi flag, the real Nazi flag, in Germany. It's illegal. They thought, let's choose a flag that's closest to our beliefs. You can walk around Germany, parts of Germany, and see the Confederate flag being flown for neo-Nazis. They know that the Confederacy shared a lot of views of Nazis. And so they chose that flag. So they repurposed it for Nazism. And today, in America, neo-Nazis, as the internet has become more connected and more, people are way more connected. Neo-Nazis in America have taken that and they've said, we don't really want to fly the Nazi flag anyway. Let's fly the Confederate flag. Neo-Nazis are now flying the Confederate flag for neo-Nazism. So that's what they've repurposed it for. And you can say heritage, not hate, and fly this flag of people who fought for slavery and who fought for all these, injustices, who fought against America. This is a rivaling nation to us. And we don't know as people if that's because you're a neo-Nazi, literally hating other people for their race still to this day, or if it's because heritage, not hate. Like, we don't know. You're just flying a Confederate flag. That sends two completely different messages. And if they choose one or the other, maybe I'll listen to them and be like, hey, if you choose heritage, not hate, that's actually the debate that's still going on today, is heritage or hate. If you choose one, sure, I'll bite. I'll give it, I'll listen to you. But they still are very
but
back and forth. And I don't think we need to show the flag that neo-Nazis are using on our state's grounds, or people who fought under that flag on our state's grounds.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I can see that, as far as state grounds, official places like that. I guess as far as like people being able to fly it, things like that, I'm more like, because I'm all about freedom. Like, this is America. Like, you're supposed to have all the freedoms, all the stuff like that. That's part of the DLC, as far as I've been told. So my thing, and here's my thing, like to what you said. I guess a counterpoint. I'm Black. I grew up in the American South. I'm no stranger to racism in like various forms. I've experienced, so many different kinds. I've experienced like systematic racism where I was, not allowed in certain programs for no apparent reason, despite the fact that I had the grades to back it up and, the time and dedication to succeed in those courses,
Yeah.
I have the background of at school, people, always referring to me as like, various stereotypes, in middle school. I got told all the racist jokes. I learned every like, slave joke, every like joke about a noose, about hanging in a tree, about getting whipped. Like, I got all that,
Yeah.
And I also, when I was younger, like I was, treated violently by a teacher. I was like physically struck, by a woman who was racist just because I was a Black kid and I was talking in class, and she like smacked me across the face.
Yeah.
I was a kid. Like, I've experienced the violence, the mistrust, people avoiding me, people crossing the street. I've seen it all. Like, I'm living it,
Yeah.
And my thing is, the Confederate flag, I always view it as like a marker. It gives me an idea. When I see someone wearing a Confederate flag shirt, I just know in the back of my head, like, watch that dude. As far as like, maybe he's not exactly about what I'm about, at a very basic level. And the thing is, that keeps me safe. Or like when I'm driving at night down the back roads in Lexington, You know how many people fly Confederate flags in front of their homes.
Yeah.
And that just gives me a bit of information, just a little bit of data. Like maybe don't pull up to this dude's house at night, trying to sell my Boy Scout popcorn because he might not be friendly. Obviously, I'm thinking just throwing a random thing out there.
Yeah, yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? I feel like letting people wear it and be out and overt with it makes more sense than censoring it, because censoring it doesn't remove any of the feelings.
Yeah.
Taking down those statues and saying you can't take your flags to NASCAR races isn't going to change how anyone feels. It's going to make them angry. It's going to make them frustrated. It's going to make them feel like their rights are being violated. And then they're going to have a resentment. So what we just did, like with NASCAR, there were a bunch of people who fly the Confederate flag. A lot of them probably don't even know why they fly it. Their dad flew it, now they fly it, and yeehaw, like whatever, right? I'm right here just doing it. And they're, it's America. Most people probably work with Black people, Hispanic people, various minorities, and they probably don't mistreat them. I met a lot of people at Lexington who wore Confederate stuff and didn't treat me differently.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of people I interacted with who never wore any Confederate flags, who always talked about being like, Christians and like loving stuff, who were extremely racist to me. And they didn't wear anything. There was no indication. And the thing is, I'd rather you wear like, oh, can't name names, but a kid in middle school who was racist. I'll say his name, but I don't say his name. You know who I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about, actually.
Who I would talk to sometimes.
Yeah.
For the first 2 years I knew this guy, he wouldn't even call me by my name. He literally just called me the black skin. He never called me Eric once.
Yeah.
Always. He was like, hey, black skin or black skin. And I would that's literally the only way he would refer to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get mad at him for that. I didn't say, hey, man, that's not my name. I didn't do any of that. Because to me, I'm like, he has an implicit bias. He, for whatever reason, doesn't see fit to call me by my name. And that's his right. Because I also didn't have to respond to him. I didn't have to interact with him. But I chose to. Because I was like, whatever biases he has, I'm going to whittle away at them in any way I can. Which I always do. So he's like, hey, blacks again. And it's obviously saying in a disrespectful tone. I'm like, what's up, man? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
First time I responded, he was super taken aback. He was like, he was trying to reach out and make me uncomfortable with his words and assert some kind of dominance over me. And I simply didn't allow him to. I responded calmly and politely, what's up? And from then on, he always treated me differently. And he still harbored his resentment, his, feelings. He still made racist comments. He still wore the Confederate flag shirt. And literally, people, he told people in conversation that, yeah, I'm a neo-Nazi, I believe in stuff, But that was all real. And I never stopped talking to him. I never stopped being, cordial with him. By the time we're in high school, he was in my English class in senior year, and he was super polite. First he apologized at length for the way he acted. And he told me, he was like, my stepdad's really racist. He was like, I had really, really terrible influence from him. And he's like, I'm just sorry. I regret it. I mistreated you. I misbehaved. He was like, I wasn't respectful. I wasn't kind. And he apologized. And the thing is, of course, I've told him, I forgive you. I never harbored ill will. And we were friends and we were chill. And we talked every day in English class, and it was cool. Because I understood no one chooses to be biased or racist, It just happens. I mean, at a point you do get to make that choice, but when it first is taught to you, it's taught to you.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, I could have reacted like most people and never talked to him or called him a cracker and told him to leave me alone or done things I saw other people do to him. But the thing is, that only makes it worse. That only takes this rift that's here and just widens it. I'm all about bridging the gap instead of widening the rift. And I feel like the problem is right now we're widening the rift because we're taking people who because a lot of them say that's our heritage, that's part of whatever. And people will go, no, like it's wrong, and he represented bad things, tear it down. My thing is, I went to the state house as a kid. It didn't affect it didn't say Negro and like zap me with its freaking laser beams when I walked into the state grounds. I wasn't treated any differently. I was there with all my friends, my fully integrated classroom of friends, and no one cared. No one made comments about it. It wasn't weird at all. We're making it weird. We're making it an issue because it's really not an issue. That people decided to talk about it, and now we're having a debate about these statues and how they're oppressing people. I've never once, tell me, dude, the second that statue gets up and walks up to someone and hinders their ability to do anything, the first day that statue is like, oh, you're a black man? You wanna succeed in South Carolina? Oh, and like free beats them up. Like, yes, tear it down. But until that happens, let's accept the fact that it's a statue, and why even give it power? When you start talking about it, and I'm not talking about you, of course, personally, because you know you're like me, you're really chill about these kind of things. You don't really get super involved, but there are a lot of people who do, and they give it power. Every time they like retweet and share and say this is so dumb and like we need to go down with this establishment, it's like you don't even understand it. And like something that gave me perspective on this, I went to Ohio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hung out with some of my cousins who I've always been to like white schools, majority white schools, like overwhelmingly, like over 80% usually. Like, I mean, really like white schools, you know, just because of the areas I've lived in. And because of that, I have a deeper understanding of like, I've met more white people. I'm more comfortable. Like, I don't feel uncomfortable around white people. Like, to me, they're just people. Like, I, if anything, feel more comfortable around like my, black friends and stuff. Cause I feel like I'm like, am I doing it right? You know, like people have always said, oh, you're like the whitest black guy or you're a white black guy and stuff like that. And it's like, sorry, chief. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
No.
It's like talking to my cousin, dude. So she thought this is how like out of touch people are. She's from Ohio. She's only ever lived really in Columbus, which is like a city. And she genuinely thought all Confederate flags were like banned and illegal. She thought like she thought like in any state, she was like, so she thought you couldn't wear them on shirts, you couldn't have them in phone cases, she thought the only place you'd ever see them was State House. She didn't even know like people wore them or accessorized with them. Yeah. That was totally foreign concept to her. She was like, wait, like people have them? Like, I thought they were illegal. I was like, where did you get that idea? Like, that's totally false. I was like, you can't drive down a country back road without seeing a few. I was like, it's not a thing. Like, there are plenty of like my dad, like we work with contractors, like the guys who cut the grass at the house. They had like a Confederate flag like bumper sticker, and they didn't treat us any differently when they showed up to do their work. They were polite, like chop it up, have conversation, cut the grass. One of the dudes was black. Like it's a bumper sticker, but the second you stop and say like this represents years of hatred and racism and oppression, and the person says, well, no, it doesn't. I just put it on my car. And now you're in this conversation where everything's getting inflated. But at the end of the day, to the people on ground zero in the situation, it's just a bumper sticker. And it doesn't have to mean anything. And you give it power by giving it attention. So I say, don't give any of these things power and instead focus on the real issues. We have enough real issues that could actually be acted upon. Instead of putting millions of tweets and conversations and podcasts and news articles and interviews with celebrities about tearing down these statues and what they mean, why don't we talk about the police reform that we need to have, or the systematic reform that we need, or empowering people at a one-on-one individual level by like getting better education, things of that nature, things that'll really make the differences. You know what I'm saying? Because there's opportunity cost. All that effort and money that goes into taking these statues down could be going into building up our communities of all races, Yeah. And of all cultures. Because at the end of the day, I feel like the race issue is so talked about and it's so like constantly harped on, but it doesn't have to be, Like I went to school, in the South my whole life. I dealt with racism and stuff like that, but it was never hindered me, never like got in my way, you know?
Yeah.
I worked hard like everyone else. I still had friends. I still had plenty of social interaction. People were cool, and it wasn't bad. And I think a lot of people who grow up out of touch with that assume that like the American South is just this place where people are like so racist and so like bigoted. But it's like most people are just, you know, Christians and like they want to sit around and talk about how they're Christian and they want to vote for Trump and they want to drink their beer and they don't want to be bothered. And my thing is if that's what you want, like have at it.
Yeah.
That was a lot of talking. Like that was way too long of a spiel. I apologize for that.
No, that's all right. I think that you are kind of thinking about it more as you personally being affected by it, but there are people that are affected by it. There are tons of stories of people that you don't even hear.
Mm.
People don't get a voice for it, you know?
Yeah.
You're unique in the way that you dealt with it and everything, but
Yeah.
some people just aren't, you know? Some people are struck by that teacher that's like racist and they get discouraged and they need that extra push, but they just don't get it, you know?
Yeah.
I think you're a minority, like not, you know,
Yeah, I get what you
you're a
mean.
minority in the way that you're strong like that, you know. You're
Mm.
a lot of people aren't like that, and a lot of people need the push to keep going and just don't get it, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you had a nice network of friends. You
Mm.
had, you know, a
Well,
good
really,
support group and everything. And a lot of
yeah.
people just don't have that. A lot of people, you know,
Mm.
just feel so alone in it and feel so, you know,
Mm.
and that's really discouraging for people.
Yeah.
And I think that for you not to be affected by it doesn't mean that other people just need to, you know, pull themselves up and not get affected by it.
Mm.
Cause like everyone's different and everyone's going to be affected by the same kind of conflicts differently.
Yeah.
And those are really harsh conflicts. You know, you went into, I mean, you've gone into more detail with me. You know,
Mm.
those are really harsh things that have happened.
Yeah.
And some people take that to heart and really
Mm.
get discouraged by it. And I think,
Yeah.
you know, you're unique in the way that you deal with it, but
Mm.
you can't expect everyone else to be that way,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, not, you know, like to your point, I agree. And I think once again, like that should be something that we focus on is
Yeah.
dealing with that trauma and those emotions that people have from situations.
Yeah.
Because once again, a lot of people, I mean, because you want to talk about issues, you know, in the Black community and in the American community, in American society, therapy and talking about your feelings and talking about your experiences isn't very common. It isn't really looked upon as like something people really like to do. It's only now becoming popular.
Yeah.
And especially, you know, the Black community and the Hispanic community, you know, I can speak to both of those because
Mm-hmm.
my family, like nobody like go therapy. What are you talking about? Like what, you
Yeah.
know, it's so uncommon. And talking about your feelings and being comfortable with any of those things, that's not very common. So once
Yeah.
again, I'm like, that's an issue. Like, let's fix that. Let's take all of this money and all of this petitioning and standing in the streets for hours and like, people put so much work into doing things. To me, like I don't like how do they matter? What do they
Yeah.
mean? I hate symbolic change because it's symbolic. It's like it, if we put $10 million towards a symbolic change, like what who was helped, whose quality of life just got directly improved because of that change.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's hard to answer that question. It's very nebulous. It's like, well, we made the country less, like we did something, we did something, right? We made the, you know, when they took the Confederate flags, they banned them from NASCAR. We made NASCAR less racist, right? No, you just made it to where the racists can't fly, if they are racist they can't fly their flag.
Yeah.
And for all the people who aren't racist, who it's just something that's been passed down literally to them for a few generations, and they were told from a young age, like, have pride in this. This is something that your grandfather stood for, whatever. Even if it, whatever, regardless of the meanings of it, it has a new meaning with each individual that gets taught it. In the same
Yeah.
way, once again, I use the N word as a comparison just because it's kind of like they're both kind of like similar in the way that they had a bad heritage and now they've been reclaimed by modern generations. And it's like,
I don't know if the
if,
Confederate flag's been fully reclaimed.
well, people would try to.
People
And
are
the thing
trying
is,
to.
and once again, the people who don't, like, at least I know. Like,
Yeah.
I'd rather know. Like, I don't understand this mentality of like, hide it. Don't hide that junk from me, dog. Like, I want to know if I'm walking down the like, if I was living in Germany, and if say they still allow Nazi flags to, because are there less neo-Nazis in Germany because they banned flags? Probably not. If you walk into when you're look, I look at it like this: when your parents tell you, say you go home and you tell your parents that you're sexually active,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "We're Christians. We don't believe in that. Don't talk to us about that. We don't want to hear about that. Don't tell us about that."
Yeah.
Are you any less sexually active than you were? No. Your parents just no longer know because they don't want to know. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. NASCAR wants to be able to, they want to have plausible deniability. They want to have to be able to say, we don't have any racists. Look at the lack of Confederate flags.
Yeah.
Who cares? What does that mean? I've been to plenty of places where there's not a flag around and people have treated me poorly. And I've been to plenty of places where there were flags all over the place and I was treated fine. So once again, the flag means very little. It's the people who fly it. That's what matters. And you can't change the people with one word or one quick action. That's why people don't look at changing the people. They'd rather change the symbol or tear down the thing because that's way easier to do.
Yeah.
If you start looking at the real issues, then you have to start coming up with real solutions. And that's problematic, I think, for a lot of people. So as a politician, bless you, or someone with money, bless you, it's easier to say, I mean, look at how companies during Pride Month will tweet something like, come get a chicken sandwich, hashtag trans rights, and use a rainbow color on their chicken sandwich wording. And people are like, that company's all right.
Companies always do what's safe. It's so.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. It's easy, it's simple.
Yeah.
But my thing is, if they're truly racist or in that case, bigoted against, if they're transphobic or whatever, why would we rather them not just be honest and just say come get a chicken sandwich? This Pride Month stuff's kind of weird, but
this Pride Month stuff gay as hell, dude.
Yeah. Instead, all they care about is getting their money.
Yeah, they really do.
If they can get that, then their problem is solved.
Yeah.
And I feel like in the same way, if some local politician can get a statue torn down, well, people are going to go crazy for that. They're like, look at this. This person is really out here working for a change. But at the end of the day, that's not really indicative of anything other than the fact they got a statue torn down. That's all that means.
Meanwhile, they pass a bill that's restricting voting rights for people.
Exactly.
Like that person, I don't remember where it was. I'm not going to try and say a state, but there was a state recently that passed a law that you have to have a address to vote, which sounds, fine enough. You have to have an address to vote. That's great. The problem is they did it specifically because on reservations, they don't have address.
They don't have address, yeah.
They have P.O. boxes. So that made it so that literally if you live on a reservation, you cannot vote in that state.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, that's history repeating itself time and time again. And I think a great example of it beyond race issues and social issues is every major religion ever. Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, every major world religion that's claimed power has changed and kind of morphed like a chameleon to fit the social climate of their time to allow them to maintain power. When the oldest popes, when Christianity was initially adopted, by the Romans, they talk, something you learn about if you take Western civilization courses or history of religion courses, is you learn how the first thing they did was they made it a much more masculine religion in the way that they made it more patriarchal in nature. The Virgin Mary had a very important role in early Christianity.
Yeah.
And early Christianity was really only primarily practiced by slaves and women. What need does a Roman patriarch have for the Lord of the weak and the infirm? He who heals the poor and all that stuff. They don't need that. They have Mars, the god of war. Like,
Yeah.
like but in a couple hundred years, their culture went from this pantheon of gods that represent like war and like all these cool things. Well, war is not cool, you know what I mean? Well, to them, it actually was. It was like what they were great at. But they went from that society to then adopting, Orthodox Christianity.
Yeah.
And now, like, you are a soldier of God, and you have like the armor and the sword of Christ and all these things that, if you look at the text and the way it was taught beforehand, once again, Christianity, when it first started in Western culture, was really only practiced by the poor and women, because that's what appealed to. The idea of this, gentle savior and this, the sheep of the Lamb of God and all this stuff, that didn't appeal to men and to Roman society. And they were the first, major Western culture to accept Christianity.
Now you've got the wrath of God and the breastplate of God and the sword of God.
Exactly. And in Western civilization class, we literally talked about how they made it a more masculine religion. They took, women and all these things. They were like, just boop, boop, let me just kind of slid them out of the picture a little bit. Look at, in more recent history, the Virgin Mary remains an important part of the Catholic religion until more recently, historically. And something I learned that was interesting is the Catholic Church used to have like prophets and stuff. Not prophets, what do they call them? Oracles and stuff.
Oracles. Yeah.
Like the Pope. Like the same popes that ordered the Crusades would go see oracles. Like women who would like, and then like tell them what was going to happen. Like that was a real thing that happened. That was real. I didn't know that, but I was like,
I knew. That's crazy.
I didn't know the Catholics, because Christianity, and all major standardized religions, but Christianity in particular is what I learned about and speaking on. They had all these traditions and all these practices and all these cultures, that have slowly been phased out as time has progressed. Like of course, indulgences, that was the thing everyone learned, like more commonly learned about, Or, you look at the idea of communion, taking communion. And they used to believe in, what is it, transubstantiation? Is that where they like believe it's literally, or like the Eucharist, like the whole ceremony? And they believe it was literally like the blood of, like, back in the day, like they didn't, it wasn't a game. That was not wine. That was the blood of Jesus Christ.
In your body, it would transform into the blood of Jesus.
Yeah. And then eventually, as we entered a more secular modern world, and you saw that division start to happen between, religion and, society and all that stuff, and everything became more secular, all of a sudden people were like, I don't know about all that. They're like, oh no, it's just wine. It's representative. It's representative. Or you look at the fact that now, is it Methodist or whoever it is? Now there are a bunch of Christian denominations that are starting to allow gay marriage.
Yeah.
And my thing is, like, be about what you're about. If your religion has existed for 400 years, and for 350 of them, or way longer than actually. So let's say
398 of them.
Yeah. You've been like, the gays will burn for eternity in hell. And now they're just like, Jesus forgives all. He will salvage, because they were like, great dog, where's the congregation at?
Yeah.
Can we get some rainbow text on our Bible, please? And that now, it's like, come on, does no one see this happening? If you look at history, if you look at, the way that things change over time, everything, whenever there's money to be made, you're inherently going to see lack of honesty. You're inherently going to see things changing, and organizations, bodies of people adapting to appeal to whoever the people with the money are. And in modern society, you can't say the gays are going to burn forever in hell, because there are a lot of gays out there, and you got to show them love to get them in the door. And now the churches are, and they're literally just like, I know how like for the last like 350 years, you couldn't get married because it's literally a sin against God and it's blasphemy. And we used to like excommunicate you for that and disown you from the family. But now, for only $2,000, you can have your marriage at, United Methodist or like whatever. And it's like, boom. And just like that, history changes, religion changes, and what God himself is okay with just changes. But it's like, yeah, no, it's different now. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I think
that's okay.
Yeah. I think a religion or a system of beliefs that's best about admitting that they've changed is Buddhism. Like literally the Dalai Lama was like, yeah, reincarnation doesn't really like account for the science we know now. Maybe we just won't believe in reincarnation.
Yeah. I feel like Eastern philosophies in general, I feel like they do well because of some of their teachings, some of the philosophies behind it. Because, and once again, I think it makes sense when you look at the historical precedent.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Western civilization, you know, we live in a westernized world, you know.
Yeah.
The British dominated a majority of the world in recent history. And their influence, but European culture, like the Portuguese had, you know, an empire. There was the French, like, no one's talking about like the freaking African empire, like the, you know, the, like, I don't know, the Jamaican empire, like the, you know, the Haitian empire. In recent history, that hasn't been what it's, you know, what's been like happening. That hasn't been who's been in control. So in this westernized world we live in, it's like Western religion will be supreme and more common. And I feel like with Eastern religion, because their philosophies and their principles teach about humility and, for instance, like meditation and the idea of looking, you know, being very introspective and sitting, like Zen meditation, you know, Zazen meditation, where you just sit there with no goal, with no like intention. You're not trying to reach enlightenment. You're not trying to get wiser. You're not trying to get smarter. You're sitting, you know, they say you're sitting to sit. You get into a pose, you assume the hand position, like the cosmic mudra, and you sit there and just stare into the wall, you know?
Yeah.
And period. And I think someone who does that versus someone who goes to church, listening to them go, for like 2 hours, and then they're all like, you know, God is a good God. Like, you know, they're like, God is a good God. He loves you as long as you're not gay or an adulterer or this or that or this.
Someone scurries up to the podium, hands him a little piece of paper.
Yeah.
Oh, even if you are gay, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you know, I think, you know, because of the practices of those, of that religion and of the people of religion, they tend to be more open-minded. And at the end of the day, when no one's allowed to have sexuality, or when it's not as important, because like Christianity like talks a lot about sexuality. There's a lot of like, hey, are you over there enjoying your sex?
Actually, I'm taking a course. It's funny you mention it. I'm taking a course on human sexual behavior. And I've learned a lot of, or, you know, I've learned the first kind of units are about religious beliefs on sexuality. It's so crazy how much Christians just flip-flop. Like even before now, like before, you know, the modern era where we're just like, gay people are fine. You know, they've been flip-flopping for years and like, you know, centuries, millennia, you know? Like Paul, you know, your dude Paul. In the Bible was like, so the first, you know, Genesis 1, the first book, the first chapter in the first book of the Bible, like live and multiply, live to multiply. When you're married, you better have as much like freaking sex as possible because God dang it, we need to populate this world and it's going to be crazy. Paul literally said, if you're having sex within a marriage, you're a weak-willed man. Like sex of any kind, even within a marriage, is for the weak-willed. So from Genesis to when Paul was walking around, they flip-flopped like 3 times before that even. I was like, and now they're just like, hey, like, even premarital sex, like, we're a little okay with it. Oh, hey. You know?
Yeah, that's just my mom to come in and say, hey. But yeah, she was telling me about lunch and stuff. But yeah, as you were saying though.
But yeah, like they flip-flop like 1,000 times before that. Like we've learned a lot about it. I'm not super knowledgeable on it, but that's like the biggest flip from
So what's this class?
The Bible, human sexual behavior.
Oh yeah, and see, like, dude, I love that like you make that point, because that's something that I thought about a lot in Western civilization, and even in general conversations we've had with our Christian friends. Like the popular thing I hear nowadays is, well, that's not the New Testament. That's not representative of the New Testament. The Old Testament, that's the Old Testament. We don't like rock with that. That's that that's that old stuff.
Yeah.
And even that, it's kind of like, but like the Bible's the Word of God.
Yeah. The real reason Paul believed that is a bit unclear.
Mm-hmm.
They think it was because he believed that second coming of Jesus Christ would happen in his lifetime, and they no longer needed to multiply.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah,
because you're a bit early.
Yeah, you're a bit premature on that one.
Yeah. And my whole thing is like, with all that stuff, as far as religion and like their interpretations of things, it's like religion is inherently unstable.
Yeah.
It changes, it evolves, it grows, which is natural in this, like in the world, like things are not stagnant. There are no like universal truths that like of philosophy or of things of that nature.
Exactly.
I mean, other than like the purest fundamentals, which is why I think like, I always, I tell you, I always joke about like, if I am ever practice a religion, it would have to be my own, like when I literally like wrote and assembled by myself, because it would have to make sense to me.
Yeah.
And the problem is, religion is like, it's like politics, like anything else.
Yeah.
It's based on society at any given time. If you're born, and it's based on location.
Yeah.
Wherever you're born in the world, that would have been your religion. Like if I was born, to an Arab family, anywhere, and they would have been like, Muhammad, that's the guy. I would have been like, yeah, like, I was born to a Christian family. I was baptized. I went to a Catholic school for a year, and then you're dirty, you're unclean.
I don't know why I was never baptized. My family was just like,
enjoy house sucker. No.
I never felt it, though. Like I never felt the need to be baptized at all.
Well, I was baptized. I was baptized as a youth, as a youngin. Like I was a baby.
I was baptized as a baby, and then like, I think everyone's baptized as a baby, but you're supposed to be baptized twice, because the first baptism is your birth, and then the second one is like is your rebirth.
When you accept it into the heart. Yeah. Here's the thing. I went to a Catholic school.
Yeah.
But we did baptisms, and I was like, isn't that? Now I know baptism. Like
with Baptists,
because there's John the Baptist, and there's more to Baptist than like just baptism.
Yeah.
But like at my school, like everybody was getting baptized around. I was in third grade, fourth grade.
Yeah.
No, that stuff was fire. Like who, like, because once again, it's when you're part of that society. We go to a Christian school every day where everyone believes. Excuse me, that God's this way, Jesus is this way, the Bible has taught us all there is to know, and it makes like the fact that the universe makes sense to them makes me not trust them.
Yeah,
because I'm like, to the greatest scientists of our time, science is something where it truly evolves.
Yeah,
it grows, it gets better, we learn more. Our eyes are always opening more, our field of vision grows, our understanding deepens. With religion, it just changes and adapts and like kind of jumps around to try to like fit what needs to be done to make people do what needs to be done by the people in power. And at least with science, you could see progression. You could look at life expectancy, you can look at medication, you can look at anything, engineering, anything that has a base of science, and it keeps advancing, keeps getting better.
Yeah.
So when I hear what a scientist has to say, someone who's like Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist, very smart guy into science. When he talks about the universe at scale and what he thinks about it, and he says, essentially, like, there's a lot of things I don't know, and that's natural. That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because you're a human, and you haven't lived that long in the same way, like, he's lived like 80, not even. He's like older, he's however old he is.
I think he's like 70 something. I'll look it up. That's actually very interesting.
But humility is important to me. Like, because at all points, you're still only a human, and you haven't even existed for 1,000th of all of human existence.
Yeah.
So how can you truly speak to the human condition of all people? Like, nothing took me away from Christianity more than the fact that Christian people would say, like, he's going to hell.
Yeah.
And they'd say it so matter of factly. And I was like, oh, didn't realize you were like freaking God's representative on earth. Didn't realize that you had that power. Didn't realize you could do that. Please tell me more, you know? Yeah. Like, oh, like, you know, because when I went to school, the Catholic school, being gay was not okay, like at all. Like that was not, they weren't rocking with that. They were like, what? And now, you know, it was a K through 12 because it was a private school.
Yeah.
So I didn't, you know, there was no one's in third grade at my school was really like talking about sexuality like that. Yeah. But in the older grades, you hear about kids, like a kid got kicked out of the school for being gay.
Yeah.
Because he got caught. He got caught kissing this other dude. And they kicked him out. They literally removed him from school. It's like his parents were paying for him to go to school here. Like, that's crazy to me. You go to public school, you get caught doing a lot worse than kissing, and they're like, see you in 2 weeks, dog. Like, go home. Go home.
Please. No.
God, I'm gonna have to give you a consequence. Great. You know, go to ISS. You know, you go to a freaking private school, they're like, sir, your $5,000 a month is no longer acceptable. Go away forever, you know?
Yeah, I think what took me out of, well, I'll tell you another guy Tyson's age in a second, but what drove me away from Christianity was like people would get baptized so lightly. Like I took it so seriously.
Exactly, me too.
Like, I don't feel this, so therefore I'm not gonna like get baptized. Literally everyone in like fifth grade, dude, you're like, I have accepted the Lord Jesus Christ into my heart, and I except that I know everything there is to know about Christianity, and I'm, you know, not even 10 years old.
Yeah.
Not like.
And of course, what? And once again, the problem is if you go to science, you know, you look at the fact that even into our early adult years, and really throughout all of our life, psychologists have shown how your upbringing has such an unbelievable impact on how you develop as a person. So if you live in a family where they're like, you should get baptized, you should really consider it. They're constantly talking about it. At my school, that junk was hype. Like we didn't have a football team. We didn't have any sports teams. It was a private school. It was a small private school in El Paso, Texas, on the border of Mexico. And the most hype junk was chapel on Wednesdays. Yeah. Dude, I pulled up to chapel and I was freaking hooping. I had my polo on, I had my khakis, I had my slacks, I had my shoes. Yeah. I was like, dude, we play Hillsong United, which is like this Christian rock band that I still listen to. You know, even when I was an atheist, I was listening to the junk because it was bars. I was like, God's not even real. But also, deep cries out to Jesus. Like, you know, like I was freaking, his music was bars. Yeah. And we go to chapel on Wednesdays. And that was literally the most hype thing at school. They'd play Christian music. We would be jumping in the stands, like literally rocking the auditorium. And that was just what we had weekly pep rallies essentially about God. And then everything we did was Christian, like it was Catholically Christian. Like you go to band class and we'd be playing the recorder and they were like, I hated how the motivation for everything was just to please God. Yeah. Because I think that's the reason why you look at Christians, so many people, why they leave Christianity, because they're not happy. They're not content because they don't even know what they want. Yeah. They're like, it doesn't glorify God, but why am I doing it? You know? And I remember one time I got in trouble because like I was messing, you know, I was like a silly kid. I talked a lot and stuff like that. Yeah. And I wasn't playing my recorder properly. And she was like, Eric, we play music to glorify the Lord. We play music to glorify God and you're disrespecting him. She was like, God's in heaven crying right now because you refuse to respect him. And I'm just like, dang, son, like I wasn't trying to hurt God's feelings like that. You know, I was a kid. I didn't understand. I
played an A instead of a B.
Yeah, and it's
I'm gonna kill myself.
At my school, it was constantly about God. I worked at a church. You know that. Yeah. I worked at a church at a daycare system. And constantly, whenever the kids would do something wrong, they were always told they were making God unhappy. And I was like, dude, you're making me unhappy. Like, don't even worry about God right now, dog. God's not there. He's busy. Like, I'm here. I'm watching you. And I just saw you talking during movie time. What the freak? Like, how is God sitting? Like, he talked during movie time, and now we're out there having a freaking like vigil and like, you know, calling on the Lord because he won't stop talking during movie time. And it's like, guys, listen, I know that God cares a lot. So, I mean, if you talk during movie time, it says in freaking Ephesians 6:7, he who talks during movie time shall be stoned, shall be cast stones upon him until dead.
Yeah.
Talking during movie time, strictly forbidden in the scriptures. But God dang, son, like, why don't we just tell him that we don't want him to do it? It's against the rules. And it's like this kid in third grade, you know, he interprets the world like God's judging him for everything he does. And so he doesn't know how to approach any situations. Because, you know, our friend, you know who I'm talking about, same way. Whenever a moral dilemma arises, the first thing he talks about is religion. He doesn't even know what he stands for because he's too busy referencing what the Bible says.
Yeah.
And as we now know, as anyone who looks at history, that chunk changes.
Yeah.
Like, if you base your whole life and your decisions off of what some pastor says or what some leader says, but then if you look at the fact that those leaders change what they say every few years to kind of fit society, like, how are you ever supposed to make your own decisions?
And I think that that's a great place to end. But even more than that, I think we need to realize that, like, if this, you know, teaches us anything, it's that like people's beliefs change, our beliefs change. The things we said in this podcast, even 2 years from now, we might just be like, oh, I was so stupid. I was like, come on, I didn't see it right. But, you know, I think that's something that we all need to keep in mind is like people change. You need to be very forgiving of when people actually change. Now, when they say they change, they actually prove to you that they change. I think that's very important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Furthermore, I would like to ask you what you think Neil deGrasse Tyson's age is. I was thinking around 76 when I looked it up. I was thinking 76. That's
55.
55? It's crazy that we were both very wrong. He's 61.
Oh, I was pretty close.
You were pretty close. He's 61, dude.
Yeah, that's like, all right.
Does it?
61 is pretty old.
I feel like he's
not old in a way.
Forever.
Something I realized though is like people are like old as free. Yeah. Like when you look at history and like society, like look at 10 years ago.
Yeah.
TikTok didn't like some of the biggest social media platforms in the world didn't exist.
Is Neil deGrasse on TikTok?
I don't know. That'd be cool if he was. But think about that. Like a lot of those famous people in the world didn't exist.
Yeah.
Some of the richest people, well, not didn't exist. They didn't like have any platform.
Yeah.
A bunch of like so much changes in 10 years. So people who are like 50, 40, like that's ridiculous. Like they were born, like the phones used to go like this and stuff.
Yeah.
Or like went like this. And now we have freaking like OLED. What even is that? So like time is wild.